Starting recording. Okay. Welcome to the Magus Talk podcast. This is your host, AC George, the resident Magus, with his cohort in all matters arcane, Plain J. I used to call him Dr. J, but he's too short. So anyways.
Call me Dr. J. The name is still cool. I just want to get everybody perfectly clear that I'm like 5'7" or so. I'm a little guy.
Okay. Go ahead.
But anyway, I'm dying to tell you this story, Ari.
All right, let me just say one more thing, introducing Zone, because we decided last time, instead of speaking generally, and for Jay to participate in the conversation a little more intensely, because this is a dialogue and that's the promotion of the podcast. Otherwise, it'd be just some monologue or a long YouTube video. So Jay is working through an alchemical cultivation process with magic and using Solomonic magic, basically. He is moving through the 72 spirits of the Lesser Key of Solomon, the art of Goetia. He's been doing this since 2006, but we've entered at the same time. The system he's using is my personal interpretation of the art, and combining it with the names of the Shem HaMeforash that are expressed in the system. But instead of angels, they are divine names. And what we do basically is read the, secret seal of Solomon that's in the Lesser Key, that's in the Lemegeton, as a zodiac marker to basically tell us where we put the jinn. And this marker is initiated on a certain day of the year that corresponds to around the fall equinox, when the moon is waxing, when it's getting from new moon to full moon. I had told Jay that the best time to initiate the system would be now on the lunar eclipse, when you have a supermoon that's very close to the fall equinox. There's a second time where this can happen, of course, during the next lunar cycle, because that's still within the window. However, this was a unique opportunity. So Jay is finally going to grace us with stories of his progress. And he's very anxious to tell me. And I haven't heard this before, so it's a first for me too, folks. Well, take it away, Jay. Let us know what happened.
All right, man. It was a really, really cool night. It rained the all day that day, all morning, and cleared up at night, and the wind died down, and I was like, awesome, I can make a fire. So I did. It was downstream, and then it was cool because Darren, my brother, and my nephew came over, and we played some music at the beginning of the night, but it gets too dark to play after that, and so they went back home. And so I was drinking beer, all right, but not a lot. And I stopped when they left. I started drinking coffee because I made coffee earlier that day. And so I just drank coffee and just watched the moon until it got to about midnight. And then it was great, did the ritual. Everything was really smooth. It's been a while since I've done it, so I was worried that I wasn't going to remember. Okay, whatever. Everything was great. And so I went to bed, went and crawled in the back of my truck, went to sleep. Woke up the next morning, drank a little more coffee, and then
you did the meditation and stuff a little bit at night.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did. I raised or I called the four rulers: Orines, Abramelin, Paimon, and Elgin. And it's a routine that I've been through every day for a full year. And then I got away from it because I wanted to work on the thing that was missing, which was the organ fusion stuff that you were teaching me. So anyway, it was really easy to remember all that. And I called the genies as well. So I can't remember them right now, but I think Baal and Agarez and the other 8 are the other six. Yeah. And so, but again, everything went smooth with that. Everything was cool. I had all the sigils drawn out around me in a big circle, and I was outside, the moon was full and everything. But it was just very comfortable, fun, normal, nothing weird happened. Went to bed, woke up the next day, drank a little coffee, and then that's when everything just started like going a little nuts. Anxiety, borderlining fear, and
For no reason, huh?
for no reason at all.
I know.
To the point of where, okay, I'm not going to play music tonight. I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to have it. I'm just going to sit here and feel this because this is too fucking weird. But I did decide to smoke some weed. And so for our audience, I'm in Colorado, so that's completely legal up here. So
Right.
I smoked some weed, and ever since I've summoned the Marquis way back in the day, I've never been like, I mean, I used to get paranoid when I was younger when I would smoke, but after the Marquis, nothing scares me. So, it's like, it's just, I mean, or if I am scared, it's like, okay, I've been scared before. It's no big deal. And so anyway, I get high and I get really paranoid of something I'm not scared of, which are bears, and there are plenty of them in Colorado.
It's always something, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like, I'm not scared of bears.
Exactly.
Ow!
Yeah.
So anyway, I get really paranoid, and then I think it's funny that I'm paranoid because it's like I'm beyond this kind of thing. So it's like, all right, fine, but then I close my eyes, Ari, and now I have visions when I close my eyes, but the visions come in like, it's like my peripheral is closed and I'm looking through a hole, and that is my vision. These visions were unbelievable. There was no hole. The panoramic view was wider than what my normal sight with my eyes were. So it was just a wider field of vision, so much so my peripheral vision actually extended behind me. I mean, it was just like boom. I mean, visually, It was amazing. And I saw, it was a very worldly, earthly vision with a little bit of underworld weirdness, but mostly it was world. And I could see people's faces. I could, the old ladies that were like really happy with me. And it
What was
just
this vision of? I mean, did it make sense? Was it a story? Was there a narrative to it?
No, it just looked like I was connected with more. It was like I was looking at different places around the world all at once.
Okay.
And it looked like very, very old world, like European country type zone. Old ladies. Not all of it was old world though, but and most of it was older ladies, but there were some older men there also, and their faces would just change, but everyone was happy with me. There were nothing really.
They were happy with you specifically. I mean, they like looked at you and you were communicating on some level. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was really the thing that stuck out was the old ladies were happy with me. I don't know why, but
Okay, I have an idea, but I'll tell you later. Okay.
Sure. Borderline wanting to pick up on me, but not really. There was some distance, but it was just happy. They were good.
Yeah.
They were happy. And then I just had this, and this lasted for hours. I was like watching a TV show. It was really entertaining. And then I went to sleep, and then I had a dream, and it was of these four, and all of my familiars have skulls for faces. So that's just something I enjoy and I've gotten used to. But these were not necessarily familiars, but they did have skulls as faces. They were skeletons, kind of like a Baron Saturday kind of look. And
when did this appear again? This appeared after you woke up the next day?
No, this was all of this was the next day after the ritual. Okay. And I felt like crap that entire day after the ritual, and now I'm talking about my experience that following night.
Okay.
And so the dream was, I know you're going to figure it out. It was obviously, to me, it was just like I made a connection with the rulers because the colors they were wearing, Well, actually, they were wearing my hat. I'll just pull that out right now. This new cool hat that I got.
Oh yeah.
They were wearing that, and each one had a different color, and the colors range from white to black to
But they were all
green,
skeletons.
gold, but they were wearing suits. All right, so they were wearing hats.
These
and
were
suits.
skeletons with suits, with that hat on. Okay.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the Day of the Dead in Mexico.
It had that kind of feel. It
The
certainly
Muerte.
did.
Yeah.
But holy shit, okay. All right. So they were wearing what do they call those things? Zoot suits. The suits that the Mexicans would wear in the southern part of California, I think, back in the 40s and 50s. The real high pants and the long jackets and that funny hat that like tilted that way. They looked really cool.
Yeah.
But it was also my hat. It was their hat, but it was also my hat.
Is this like a
So,
Ricky Ricardo look or something?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
but the suits were all black, but the hats were different colors, right?
No, the suits were also different colors. Everything, the hat and the suits matched in color.
So how many of these guys were there?
Huh?
How many of these guys, these skeletons, were there? 4. Oh, okay. Well, that's obvious.
And the colors went along with the colors of the organs.
I see.
So it was the green and the gold and the white and the black, and there was some red in there also. But with the routine or the ritual that I have, I start out with the emblems of the tarot. The swords are lungs, and that's white, and then the liver is green, and then the
kidneys
are black, and that's gold. But then when I summon the rulers, the sword changes to a more of a heart fire, but it's still my fire, and that's Aurine's. And then these two guys switch colors as well. It gets confusing, but I think you remember what you designed, right?
Yeah. Okay. I don't think only when you change to the east does everything switch around, though.
Right. And so I did start in the south and then change to the east, and that's when everything switches around.
Yeah.
All right. And so after that, I just woke up, and I have no real things to say about any genie experiences, except with maybe one. But that was just a positive kind of social thing. I felt I can't say his name, but Agares's energy. Agares. I felt this energy of he gives you positions, he gives you authority, he gives you a holy shit, who's that guy kind of thing.
Yeah. And he can take it away too. The emphasis is on taking it away. But not for you. You can tell him to take. You can basically, you get that power, but you also have the power to take it away from others. That's part of that power. You can be the guy who says, according to my authority, you're full of shit.
Well, this created this experience created something really positive, which we needed. So it was there was no bad feeling in this meeting. So it was really cool.
Supposed to be.
Okay.
It just gives you the ability to place limits on others who are abusing the power. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Just by your opinion. Your opinion overrides their authority. Let's put it that way. If you disagree with somebody and you know you're right, and the genies support it, not the genies, but at least your inner flame supports it, then you can just say, when you say you're full of it to somebody else that you disagree with, and they have clout and authority, not your common person, but somebody who like uses the same energy in a manipulative way, you can counter that and neutralize it.
Okay, so here's some more information. So basically, it was me, my brother, and my nephew, and we went to a bar, and we wanted to talk to the owner, who we've had to cancel some shows at this bar.
Okay.
Because mom got sick, everybody else got sick, and now the relationship between me and my older brother has always been of conflict.
Yeah.
but we're always together. Well, all of that has gone away, but now, for various reasons, it's gone away, and I had a lot to do with it, and I feel good about that. However, he was really intent on having me go with him to this bar, and
He didn't have to though.
yeah, I didn't have
Yeah.
to. He
Okay.
really wanted me there.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that also has kind of something to do with Agreras as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was like, I like for my brother to be the leader of the band because I don't want to deal with the bullshit. I just want to
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
music. But it did feel like the guy didn't know who was the guy, the person we were
Who to
talking
talk to? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't know who to talk to. So he was having a good time talking with both of us. And it was good. And nobody got their toes stepped on. Everything was cool. So I think maybe Darren, my brother just wanting to, hey, I need you, buddy, kind of thing, was kind of cool. But and I still think it has a little something to do with the Geras.
I think it has a lot to do with the Gyrus, but that doesn't negate what you just said about your brother needing you. The thing is, the underworld or unseen world isn't really another world. It's part of this one. And when you activate it, you are perceiving it, then anybody connected with you will perceive it through their subconscious. They won't admit that they're perceiving it. They won't recognize that they're perceiving it. It might not even affect them directly, but they will react to you as if that presence was there. And they take it into account. So your brother at least saw, well, if we want this to go through, I got a strong feeling. And some people would say, oh, that's the jinn whispering in his ear or something. But it is actually the energy, because in this case and in this system, we don't use the genies in the same way. We don't basically summon the genie and say, go do this, or summon the genie and expect something to happen, because pure summoning doesn't do anything, really. It does in a certain sense, because if you have a purpose, if your soul is going in a certain direction, the genies can read that, or your higher self can read it and interact with it. Something goes on, and you're participating. But if you just flat out blindly or coldly summon a jinn, then the jinn says, "What do you want? Why am I here?" If you have a system like mine where there is a thing implied saying, well, you are here for my cultivation, you are here to bestow your general abilities, so your familiar in me can actually work with that, then they already know. So there is no outward statement. However, in this case, the purpose is to integrate the energy of Agaris, which is essentially the energy of the earth. In the runes, there's a rune called Fe. It's just the letter F, basically. And it's in some systems, it's the first letter of the rune alphabet. In other systems, it's the last letter of the rune alphabet, because it's a circle. They really don't know, because the second letter of the runic alphabet, Ur, is basically one bull or one bovine creature, like a wild auroch. The aurochs were basically wild bison in ancient Europe, and some of them survived in the Bronze Age or wherever, and later. But the Norse would hunt them, and the Germanic peoples would hunt them. So it would be a signal of manhood, a sign of manhood, if you can kill one of these with your bare hands, basically, with whatever weapons they had, and then you cut off its horn and you use it as a beer mug. It's a drinking horn. So that is provides virility and all kinds of things. And it's also a metaphor for inspiration, because the sacred horn holds the sacred drink that basically gets you high and gives you inspiration. It's a metaphor for spiritual ecstasy, shamanistic ecstasy, but also who knows what else substances they might take. So this is the second rune, and according to some, the first rune. The other rune next to it is a herd of bison. It's a herd of cows, and it's basically the domesticated herd. So I use the rune alphabet where we start from the basic one, the auroch, and then the last rune is the herd, because that rune, the F rune, symbolizes wealth. So what you're doing is you're tapping into the wealth of the earth, the ley line wealth, the dragon lines. The rune poems imply that we're talking not about cows, but cows are fertility. They used to be currency back in the day for nomads. Basically, it was a sign of wealth, as many, The more cattle you had, the wealthier you were. So this rune basically represents the dragon lines. So these dragon lines are the power of Agaris. And so he can make the earth spirits dance, which means he can actually animate the dragon lines and cause effects on people. And he knows all languages, which means he can also access the mind of every human being. So not through the auditory system, but through the thinking process, through he can give you the sense of being able to tune into anybody and understand what they're thinking. Or if they're basically emoting, body language, any kind of communication. And that is symbolized. Some people would say, no, we take it literally. It's you literally understand every language on the planet. And I've never seen that personally, So it is a metaphor, and the whole system is full of metaphors. So you take this energy of wealth, and any time somebody sees you with this energy, it will attract wealth. They want to give you, I don't know about wanting to give you money per se, but they will give you positions where that wealth is shared with them, and then they will compensate you if the conditions are right. So because you have that wealth, you also have the authority. And because you have the authority, you can actually regulate the same wealth in other people. So whoever contacts you, a normal human being, as long as things are approved and harmonized and you're not rocking the boat too much, you will be seen as somebody who has all that stuff. However, this energy, is given over to Baal. It's actually used to support the alchemical process of Baal. And that process, I'm not sure if it's automatic or this is just a kind of thing that you initiate yourself, where you have the fire element symbolized by the cat at the top level, at the head. You have the water element symbolized by the frog in the belly, and the air element is symbolized by a human in the heart area. So,
all right. Okay. Damn it! I gotta stop. I gotta stop you for a second and put in a real quick story about a dream I had. A dream I had on Sunday. Okay, now I had the whole ritual or calling of the rulers and the genies on Tuesday. I didn't do anything on Monday, but Sunday I kind of rehearsed and made sure I could do it. And I had a dream that evening after the summoning and whatever, and this is on Sunday, of me beating a dead Kermit the Frog with a stick. I'm like, I woke up the next morning going, yeah, okay, I guess maybe things didn't work out exactly the way Baal wanted it to, but anyway, I think good things happened Tuesday. Okay, I had to stop and tell you that. Go ahead, man.
No, good. That's a good thing, and we'll get to your other dream with the skeletons and stuff. And the previous thing that I kind of forgot. What was the original? You had mentioned something that I was gonna comment on, the old ladies, yeah, the old women, and the vision of that, the panoramic vision. So that was very positive, and I think the panoramic. See what happens with me. I don't get positive things like that. I mean, I get hostility sometimes. And it doesn't, I'm not discouraged by it, but it's because I rock the boat, because I'm coming up with this stuff and it kind of rocks the boat. And the energy I want to convey is one of transformation. I don't get in anybody's face, but if some guru type in my inner vision goes, okay, you got to do what I say, I will strongly disagree. But this was earlier. This was before, because it's also about karma and your own predisposition. In your case, you got a nod from what a friend of mine used to call the wise sisters. And they're not, let's say, women who are into, I won't say witchcraft, but basically women who are more contemplative, and elderly women who are basically sensitive psychically and can do folk medicine and maybe folk magic or whatever. You don't hear about this like in Europe, for example, and you saw the old world, right? You were seeing the world, the traditional world. You're not seeing modern urban society. This is like in Italian villages and the villages in India and villages in China, where you always have the tradition of, and they have a certain frequency of consciousness and they're connected. Back in the day, with me, it works in other ways too. It depends on the thing, but you can have similar effects with different approaches. I was doing a mantra, and with the Indian god Ganesh or Ganapati, he's pretty popular. He's got an elephant head, one tusk, a little pot belly, a human body, and basically he's also a god of removing obstacles, initiating things. There's a deep archetype there, and I won't get into it. But the point is that I had a vision of all the shamans in the world, because I was asking, okay, I'm doing this, but is there anybody else out there? There's supposed to be all these wise people, all these sages way beyond me. Where are they? Who are they? And I started getting a parade, courtesy of the god, of all these people from different. I was seeing a shaman on a waterfall in Africa squatting on a rock. I was seeing this Mandarin guy in China with these satin robe. I mean, it could have been from other time periods for all I know, because this guy had he looked like he was sitting on a throne with a purple and gold satin robe, kind of, rotund. And then there was another character from India, and then another character over here and there. And then all of a sudden it stopped on one person. And this guy was basically squatting by a river, but the river was about the size of a sidewalk. It was a sidewalk wide. It was more like a creek or something, but it was in the middle of a desert. So I don't know if it was symbolic or not. But then I tuned in, and the guy was like, "Oh, you made it. You're actually responding. Okay, if you can follow this signal, you can be my disciple if you come and meet me. You have the criteria." And I'm like, well, that's well and good and stuff, and thank you for the heads up, but I have no intention of being anybody's disciple. Okay, well, see ya. And then I went back later, and I was like, hey, was this real? And the same vision popped in, only this time the guy was wearing a suit, a modern suit, not too modern, though. It looked kind of 70s-ish or 80s-ish, who knows. And the guy was working in a small Indian town in some kind of office where he was like a realtor or who knows what, basically he had and his long hair was tied in a bun, and he had a beard, but he wasn't that old. His hair was still dark. So he was like, then it turned around. It was like, don't bother me. I'm busy. I told you, if you're not going to come here, don't harass me. Let me do my stuff. I said, sorry. Okay. And then I connected to this other woman who had a strange robe of birds or fish or something. This was supposed to be some wise woman. And then she was had a weird smile. And it was obvious to me it wasn't on the level. I mean, this was a psychic person. This was a guru type. But the whole makeup wasn't what I was looking for, shall we say. It was a little bit witchy, a little manipulative, although this was supposed to be some spiritual person. Basically, almost like somebody who had too much of an ego and yet still had psychic powers, but was an elderly female. Even still, her hair was still dark, so, as it happens. So what I got from the god then was that, or the deity, or whatever you want to call that connection, was that, yes, these are all here, but they're pretty reluctant to rock anybody's boat. And they have been for all time. They just want to have the experience and gain it for themselves, maybe help the people next to them, but they don't want to touch the karma of the planet, the world karma, or the karma of humanity. It's too much. Others say it's not the right time or something like that. And I'm like, well, if it's not the right time, when is it going to be the right time? And maybe now is not the right time, but it soon will be. And I've noticed that I tend to reconnect with that, although it's not in terms of a vision, but kind of a sense where, okay, these guys are starting to take it seriously now. A lot of them were like, oh, the prophecies, a lot of them were this and that. But there was always some kind of reluctance. And I can understand that, because when you enter the zone, you experience the level of the human collective unconscious. And that's the fear zone that you experience. And that's why you also saw the four rulers as death, as the skeleton. I mean, when you see a skeleton, it's two things. First of all, bone marrow, deep energy, because your bones are the crystals of your body, essentially. They're a concentration of minerals that act as like a quartz crystal. And when you vibrate the bones or when you move energy through them, they actually amplify your body's life force. And there are cultivation techniques about that. That's That's an esoteric interpretation. But the other one is more poignant because it is very similar to the Day of the Dead. You said they were wearing suits like Mexican Americans back in the day and all of that. So it's very classic, very classic.
They call them zoot suits or something. I can't remember what they call them, but anyway.
Yeah. In any case, this particular thing was you had an endorsement, and then there were some elderly men, because there's usually fewer male herbalist healer types in villages. I mean, they do exist. I've even met one once carrying like a bag of therapeutic mushrooms once I got really sick as a kid here in this village from where I'm doing my recording. And, dysentery-like symptoms, and it was really horrible. Some kind of terrible food poisoning. But this guy had this concoction he made by a bunch of mushrooms he picked that I was okay in like a week. Everybody else took a month, something like that. But anyways, there are people like that in the world, and these people have a certain psychic frequency, and you can tune into that. And so I don't know if these people or how many or whatever are cognizant of the fact that they form a network, a frequency, but it's almost like when you get psychic at a certain level, at an earthly level that's connected to the human collective, you form a kind of higher level network where you're a kind of telepathic connection with others who have the same frequency. And it's not conscious, but it's almost like you can share information that is not personal. For the personal effects, you need a deeper level. But this revealed to you that, okay, you're plugged in now. You're plugged into the network. And you're plugged specifically in, since you live in Colorado, to a network that's connected to the Central American zone. And basically because the same rulers were accessed through the Native Americans, through the Central American Indians, and all of that. All those civilizations and the shamans, they did relate to the four directions. And as you know, it's pretty popular, the four directions of the Native Americans and all of that, the medicine wheel, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of connected to what we may call the underworld medicine wheel. And this underworld medicine wheel, your subconscious and the jinn themselves, they conveyed it like, okay, here's your Day of the Dead Mexican zoot-wearing organ energy people. And these organ energy people, they signify like, okay, your emblems are now plugged in because they reflect you. They're not like like Furcas, who was like the guy with the cowl and stuff. They were actually saying, we are now tuned into your very bones, because the bones of the earth are the stones and the crystals. The stones of the body are the bones. So there's that correlation. And in a sense, I'm explaining this in terms of my own connection with the stuff and what I've experienced. But mainly it's a stream of consciousness understanding, because as soon as you said this, it's almost like the jinn themselves are collaborating into clarifying the picture. And I've expressed that before. So in essence, these pictures are multifaceted, but you want to tune in to what matters the most to you. And in your case, it's like, yes, you tuned into the underworld. Yes, the human collective at that level is viewing you favorably because you haven't done anything to insult anybody or offend anything at that level, and you're not rocking the boat. So you got a thumbs up there. You passed a minor test of sorts, which wasn't a test that somebody imposed on you. It's just, well, when you do this and open up, especially if you get high a little bit, but this happened even before you got high, you will enter a field of fear. And the reason, they say, cannabis causes fear sometimes when and it's like, no, it's not that. It makes you sensitive to something that's already going on. And basically, if you have ill intent directed at you especially, this is magnified. If you're tuning in to just the human condition of everybody's, because people are afraid. They're always afraid. But this time especially, this fear energy is being cultivated in society specifically to keep people like you and me from connecting to these zones. And for anybody to get beyond their little trap of fear, to keep you boxed in, basically, because when you experience it, the first thing the mind normally does is goes, why am I afraid? and then it fucking comes up with a something. For me, I experienced that on the same day and more or less clear, but it was my cat went out, and we love this cat and all of this, but some of the villagers were like, oh, what a cute cat, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna fucking steal it or something, and this has happened occasionally. At one point the cat went missing and came back after 12 hours almost beat up, and it smelled like perfume, so somebody was dealing with it and stuff and trying to do something. So I strongly intended since then. But when the cat left, I was like, and then some guy came outside of my door, like on the little cobblestone street that's going down the hill that I had described, I guess, at some point. There's a lamppost, there's a light, and I also said this, and it's out. So this guy came, and all I saw, I was just typing then, my back to the street, inside. So I heard the car, and he stopped the car. And I thought this guy was just, how it is when I dropped my keys or something, and I'm rummaging in the car to pick it up. And I stopped the car for that reason. But he was some worker that basically put in a light bulb. But when he left, the whole street was like saturated with fear that was centered right where his car was. A vortex of fucking fear. I mean, you could localize this thing. This wasn't like some energy you felt abstractly. This was like a cloud. You didn't see the cloud, but you could feel it. Basically, your gut started churning. My gut started churning. My hair stood up. A lot of physical responses that fear generates. And I was like, what's this now? And then, oh, they got your cat. Your cat's gone. Your cat will never come back, and all of this. And I was, and because there was a cause that was probable, it threw me for a loop. So I had spent all this time to clear that energy and to intend that the cat was safe and protection and all of that stuff. And eventually I dissolved the energy, and there wasn't the fear anymore, and the cat came back. None the worse for well. And the same thing happened like 2 weeks earlier or 3 weeks earlier, where I thought, and then again, what I did was go to some other part of the property, like outside of it, and in the woods, there was a spot where the cat usually crosses. That spot specifically felt like somebody like stabbed the earth with a knife that was full of black magic or something. It was really weird. And it's not a place where people can go. It's like overgrown and like a pit or something. So I was wondering what the hell was going on. So there were energy fluctuations that have to do with whatever's going through people, whatever's beamed in from who knows where. Who knows what? I'm not even going to qualify it. The thing is that when you expand your consciousness in this manner, not in the manner of the light in the higher consciousness, but in the manner of getting deeper into the underworld, which is basically the full, it's connected intimately with the field of the collective unconscious, you're going to feel your primitive zones, as you would call it, your reptile brain is going to get hyperstimulated. And usually it's because of human intention, human suffering. It's all over. Technically, if people could be that sensitive, they would actually be doing something about it. But it seems that there are some negative people in the world, many of them in positions of authority, if not all of them, that abusers basically, that want everybody to be afraid so they can easily manipulate them. This is not a conspiracy. This is an occult fact that anybody who wants to take advantage of you would prefer you fear them. Then you're more likely, or you will even respect is connected to fear in some cases for people who don't have like a strong inner presence, shall we say. So this all makes sense in that sense. And then your other dream, beating Kermit the Frog, that was a whole different story. That's basically saying, okay, we need to make a little bit of a correction here. You're beating your lower half of your body in favor of the upper half. And here's what Baal says, and this is my interpretation of something in the grimoire, where it basically says Baal favors the disputer, the guy who questions and who will dispute everything and whatever. And I'm like, okay, what's there to dispute here? And the one thing that this could be code for is because I don't understand how, just because you disagree with everybody, Baal like roots you on. So if you interpret Baal as some evil demon, you'll say, yeah, obviously. But if you interpret Baal as an initiator into the jinn process of this 72, group, he will tell you how to do it right, which means that you're supposed to take the natural order or the conventional order where the fire element symbolized by the cat and maybe related to the goddess Bastet, a fiery cat goddess from Egypt, ancient Egypt. And then the frog, which is also another correlated with some Egyptian gods who had the head of a frog. But they're from a whole other system. So whoever wrote this was using a certain symbolism. They weren't like copying somebody's religion or mystical whatever. So you interpret the frog as water. You interpret, and the lower body, you interpret the cat as thing. And as I said, air is in the middle. So what happens here is that just as in Taoist alchemy, where you take and you do this in Indian yoga too, in a different way. You take basically the cat and put it in your lower body. You take the fire that it represents and project it into your lower body where the water is supposed to be. You take the water and put it in your head. You take that energy that you sense down there, and if you're beating it, that means it's bugging you, which means that a lot of the negative stuff you were experiencing was because of that. You see, the frog connected to the lower body is more of the underworld subconscious connection, right? And in that sense, if you experience fear and whatever, something inside of you was pounding on the lower body to shut the fuck up, to stop it, to halt that fear. The point where you were trying to deal with it and where it kind of, threw you off and this and that, your subconscious or even you, it wasn't deliberate, but it's an instinctive mood. And the jinn is attempting to notify you that, okay, instead of beating on the bottom, because the reason this is happening is because you're not blending the elements. You're supposed to bring the water up, and water tends to sink. This energy is heavy. So if you bring it to your head and just relax, you'll start feeling it going down. And if you put the energy of your head down to your root, you're going to start feeling it going up. It may not happen automatically, but you can visualize it or intend it or basically move the energy yourself far more easily than when they're in the normal position. On the other hand, it's not easy to raise watery energy to the head because it resists. It's not so easy to bring fiery energy down into the belly. So this is like an exercise that one would have to do, because if you dispute it, Baal will favor you by helping you with this exercise. Basically sensing what is fiery consciousness energy, the energy not of your thoughts, but what's behind your thoughts, of your mental will. Wherever your attention goes, imagine there's a fire being lit. And so where the water is, that's the energy coming up from the ground and related to your sexuality and your primitive instincts and your biology directly. So what happens when you change these is that the man in the middle, so to speak, the human in the middle is at the heart, in the chest, and it doesn't correlate so much with the heart, but it correlates with the lungs. And it correlates with your chi, with the air, with the prana, when you breathe, with the breath. So the breath is meant to moderate and modulate and basically control the process. It's the guide. So this is a kind of meditation, and you can use visualization or whatever, but the thing is you have three distinct energies. The first one you're familiar with, which is the energy of your own breath. This is why we're doing number 2. Again, not number 2 on the toilet, but number 2. Number 2 in the...
I'm in listening mode right now. And that's why you beat me to that joke. Normally, you couldn't do that. I would have got there first. But anyway, go ahead.
I thought so. That's why I couldn't resist. Aha, one blow to Agaris. I have the authority. So it is that way. You basically, Baal will help you initiate because he's the day jinn, and it's hard to get that relationship. I mean, what's the day jinn and what's the night jinn? And they're connected.
It is difficult for me to get a handle on that one. It really is. But go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
by the time you're finished with the 8 jinn of the first cross, because this is a unique point in this approach, we do not how do you say, in this cycle, we do not summon one jinn at a time, but we summon one jinn at a time until we can master holding 4 jinn at once. And these are the 4 jinn that form a cross on the zodiac wheel. So if you're looking at the 2 jinn in front of you, then right behind you on the zodiac wheel, there's 2 other jinn. And then to the left and to the right. And they correspond to the first 2 jinn of each quadrant. And these also correspond to the minor arcana, the numbered cards, and they correspond to the second of them because this is in the alchemical process. The first step is consciousness, which you've done. Your awareness has successfully merged with the rulers, which from here on in may actually be Mexican skeletons for all you know. Just like the other cowboy one, you're in the West. I mean, you're in Texas, so you're gonna see some Clint Eastwood type characters, Furcas. And
Good.
You're exactly. I mean, it's part of the collective. The underworld is different everywhere you are, and it's intimately connected to global geography. There are no two the underworld in the United States and the underworld in Russia or India, they're all different. And it's not just the culture, it's the geography itself. And that interacts with the human element. And then you have the development. That's why in certain systems like the D. and Kelly angelic magical system, which is also called Enochian, that's also about the 4 directions, but each direction rules a whole series of spirits, which are allegedly different, but it forms a very similar system. And in this system, you have a sacred alphabet, and the summoning can do many different things. And it is meant to be a kind of training, ultimately, for the same purpose as this one. And that's why I think Dr. John Dee used it once, from what I know. He had all kinds of trouble with it. In fact, the same beings that told him to, that were allegedly conveying the system in a weird way, he was his Edward Kelly was his compatriot, was channeling this, but it could have been, and Edward Kelly thought he was making things up to satisfy John Dee, in my opinion, but he was actually getting a download. And John Dee recognized it, so he kept going. And then Edward Kelly goes, well, the angels told me that I have to sleep with your wife, and you can take my ugly wife. And we'll sleep with each other's wives to increase the connection. And he fell for it, and maybe that was a communication. But there was all kind of weird things because John Dee's ambition was to create the British Empire, to basically the colonies and take over the world and, all for the Queen and kind of. And that was not the real intent behind this kind of thing. I've been to Poland, so have you, and the energy's there, as I said. He was in Prague when he actually downloaded all of this. So the energies are very similar. And you have, archetypes coming from those geographic dynamics. If he was in Italy, he'd have a whole different experience. If he was in Africa, it'd be even more different. The essence of it is the same because the deeper you go, the more you connect with the central planetary intelligence of the underworld. And that is the goal. And that is where most people fear to tread. Usually people are associated with their local underworlds. You do not, for example, see Australian Aborigines hopping around when you're in a trance state, for example. You'll see people from your own, some Christian or Western magical tradition or something like that you can recognize in a way, relate to. This isn't just because your subconscious is familiar with that. It's because your pattern of thinking is connected with it. So I think the angelic system, what it was saying, it was connecting these 4 directions with what he calls the geographic governors. And the geographic governors were also, he basically separated the world, and somebody later on gave actual locations. The jinn he told the jinn, look, man, give me longitude and latitude of all these geographies. They're like, we don't have that where we come from. All I can say is take a globe and point, and I'll tell you what the name is. So he had like basic names from the time period, and it was very disproportionate. There were like 50 of them in the Middle East and 1 or 2 in the Americas. because, the world wasn't discovered, so to speak. It wasn't known to John Dee's consciousness. So if you don't know it, if you can't make sense of the information, you can't correlate it. There's no way the entities or whatever it was could take these two Englishmen, however educated they were, at least one of them was, and be able to convey truths outside their domain of comprehension or their domain of habitual thinking even. So that's why a lot of these things come through your dreams. You're going to have specific symbolism. So this is Agaris talking now. Agaris basically is saying, okay, here's the information. And this is what I'm conveying to you through what you told me basically, is that these geographies are all local. You're going to connect to your local geography because that's where you live. You're going to have symbolism from that local geography because that's how it's labeled. Just like you have languages in every country. Agaris says, I've been sorely misunderstood. I do not know the languages of every single person. What I do know is the geographic signature of every single area and culture. So it's an energy thing. And back in the day, I don't think the concept of psychic energy was known to Westerners so much. They didn't really relate to it. And that's why there's so much individuation of spirits. Instead of having like energy flows and pranic patterns and stuff like the modern New Age spirituality has, they personified it. Whereas the shamans had both. They were like, why compromise? They can be individual, they can be entities and they can be energies, and they're energetic entities or entity energies. It's one and the same, but it's very difficult for a person to comprehend it. So let's take what Agaris and Baal are saying. Agaris.
Are we like at a stopping point? Because there's something I really wanted to say about this whole language thing.
Okay, yeah, say it.
Yeah. Let me get that out. Not just Agaras, but there's the bunch of genies saying you can speak different languages and shit like that. And what I've noticed, because I teach English, right, and I teach English like super low levels, to where I don't know what the hell these people are trying to say in the beginning. Now it's almost like I've developed, and these people are from different countries, from all over the world, different cultures and everything. And I've come up with a way of being able to communicate to people without language.
This was after 2006. Was it recent, or were you always like that? Were you born like that?
No, it started around when I started teaching online. Now, if you're teaching in one country, that's a thing that is normal. You'll be able to communicate with that. But I'm teaching a lot of different cultures, so I can't. It's not like it was when I was living in Japan. It made me up my game a little bit in this sense. And so what that turned into, now that I can communicate with people, even though, like, if you were to listen to their English, you couldn't understand a fucking word they say. But of course, when you get used to it, maybe. But I've gotten this to such a degree, I've gotten it worked out to such a degree that when I went to Poland, without much study at all, I was able to follow conversations. So a lot of learning a language, especially in the beginning and even at advanced levels, it's a guessing game. And sometimes you guess right, sometimes you guess wrong, and you misunderstand.
That's how it is with children too.
But honestly, in 5 months of being in Poland, me being able to guess my way through conversations correctly, that's up in my game. And I really think the genies had a lot to do with that. And so when it was in demand, it came forward. Now, I don't know which genie's responsible, maybe all of them that deal with languages, but you've done the full circle.
So you've done the full circle. And in the first steps, the other way that we used to do this was one genie at a time, and not in the order of the zodiac wheel, but according to the rank. So I organized the ranks in a certain order. And basically, Jay went rank by rank. But you still familiarized yourself with all of the jinn, even when they didn't respond. There was a connection. And we were going to do the whole thing over again. And that's when it was like, no, what I'm getting now is that something else needs to be done. And it took a couple of years to put all that together, of course.
while you were doing the other thing that needed to be done, I did go through them a second time.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
anyway.
the level 2. I'm talking about a third time actually, because
Okay.
we distinguish these things into various levels. And at this point, this system, you can go straight in. If you have some experience, if you don't, you can gain it by doing them one at a time and familiarizing yourself. And I guess I could suggest that. But for the bold and without much experience, they're not going to kill you if you do it 8 by 8. It's not like one of those things some occultists say, oh, don't ever summon 2 genies at a time or more, because they will turn into monsters and get you. And it's like, no, that doesn't work, Well, you've misunderstood what's going on then, because you're not tapping into the jinn, you're tapping into collective formations or corrupt spirit that is using the jinn vibration, or an insane version, because the jinn have part of the reason that humans need to connect with them is because they need to be redeemed from all the trash, psychic trash that they're collecting. Where do you think the psychic trash of humanity goes? It goes into the underworld, just like any other toxin that you pour on the earth. It seeps into the soil, so to speak. It seeps into the ethers, into the atmosphere. And it's not the evil humans creating it. This was attracted to the planet long before there were any humans, probably even long before there was a physical planet. But humans are the ones dealing with it. So humans they have an adaptation where they dump it back into the earth, or dump it worse, because when they deal with it, their version is more concentrated of toxicity than anything you can get from nature. In nature, you have an extinction event 100 million years, after this kind of thing. With humanity, it's like, well, a couple thousand, that's all the earth can take. So we are moving to a zone where things like this, I'm not saying this system specifically, but things like this are being put out into the ethers, and they're opportunities. So your description of the languages was a wonderful explanation of what I'm trying to say with the jinn, because you were like, well, these abilities, it's not that the language, what Agaris is saying now, it's not that the language, you literally understand it. What you're doing is you're tuning into the human thought process that's a signature for that geography. You're tuning into how a Polish person thinks in a way that's nonverbal.
It's so weird, not weird, that I overuse that word, but communicating with somebody, communicating with somebody from Japan, and then maybe somebody from Vietnam, and then maybe somebody from Poland. You understand, one, that it's much easier to talk to somebody from Poland because I'm a white guy, they're a white guy. It's just boom, it clicks. It's easy. And I'm not being racist. It's just normal. It clicks. The understanding is, and so when that understanding clicked, I started understanding Japanese people better.
Yeah.
And
why?
My Japanese level went
improved.
up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, because Slavic languages are the bridge between Western European languages and East Asian languages.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
If you listen to Chinese especially, it has elements of Slavic pronunciation, a lot of sh and su, and whereas however, Slavic also has the vowels that Western pronunciation has. So it's really about a linguistic bridge, because if you, for example, speaking Greek helps me learn Sanskrit, because they're Indo-European languages, and English is on the other side, and Greek is a complementary Indo-European language. And I found out that, wow, Indian languages sound a lot like Greek. I can't understand it, but it has the kind of cadence, the way they talk and everything, a similar kind of flow. If you don't speak the language, you almost like can detect it. And then the grammar is very similar. And the same thing with Latin. You know Latin, you can learn French, you can learn Spanish, you can learn Italian. Italian's basically just a step away. I came from Spain to Italy. I could talk to people in Spanish, and they understood me,
Cool.
with a little bit of hand waving and stuff. So
Yeah.
in this case, but the jinn is a totally different entity. What's going on is that the jinn says that your mind is taking this basic, actual, natural connection that the jinn provides and applying it toward physical languages. And maybe that's how people back then could actually recognize it. But in reality, if you are esoterically well versed, the jinn can communicate deeper mysteries. And the mystery here is one of energy and consciousness. And the fact that, okay, the earth energy isn't just some raw current. It's actually full of information. It's full of patterns. It's a waveform. So it's like a radio signal that's constantly vibrating in the earth. And there's an electromagnetic component. There's a psychic component. Who knows? The point is that when you tap into this energy, this presence, and it floods your being, then you relate to everything else at the four levels that you can operate, or at the level that you can operate, in a matter where every correspondence of that effect is activated. And so if you have like a mystery effect that, I don't understand this, what is it? But you say, okay, the guy says it's really just understanding languages, then you can comprehend it. It's a step that you can reach. And as you work with them more, and as you cultivate more and transform more, so to speak, then you can get to the deeper level. And the deeper level is the cause of the language understanding. For example, you don't have nobody speaking in your head in English when they speak a different language. You don't have some telepathic thing. You're not really understanding the language per se in terms of grammar and the words used. It's not your analytical brain. Your analytical brain is connecting you to your intuitive brain and interpreting the basic feel. And you could actually, it's like reading body language. You have a series of movements and you understand these movements at a visceral gut level, what they mean. You know when somebody's emotionally open, you know when they're shut. You don't have to be a rocket scientist for that. Similarly, when somebody conveys an idea, there's all kinds of unconscious, not just body language, but mental formations that you can pick up. And Agaris basically tunes you into those mental formations. It tunes you into the aura of the other person. So that's how you can actually impose authority. And it's not meant that you should impose authority, but you're almost like a land shaman. It's what my friend from Singapore calls land shamans, which are people who are specialized in a certain geography. Just like I said, when you were driving and through New Mexico, I guess, or Arizona, and the rocks were looking like Native American Indian faces calling you to, why don't you come and work with us here? We need a guy like you and stuff like that. Where every geography is calling for human participation. Now, you don't have to go shake rattles and dance around the fire, but connecting to the earth in this manner will allow you to open to the wisdom of the unseen, and that will change your thinking process toward the better. And Agaris is saying that if you really want to benefit from Baal's transformation, which is basically a flip of the elements within the body, within the cerebral spinal axis, then tuning into this energy that allows you to understand people's geographic connections, their intuitive cultural energies, and all of this, how they communicate themselves. You cannot separate communication from the land that the person lives on. So if somebody moves to another land, they will modify their communication in some way. Not just the language usually encompasses that, but you can see it's not just the language. When somebody moves to a different culture, they feel out of place. And the people in the culture view them as somebody. You can look alike. I went to Spain. I was completely sticking out like a sore thumb in the beginning. And I'm European and everything. I'm a Mediterranean guy, So, but learning the language wasn't really it. It's my own thought process was kind of different. But since I am Mediterranean and all of that, and the culture is not that different, the initial novelty, because, girls were looking at me and all of this and smiling and talking, and I was making a lot of connections and everything was positive. But then it shifted into, oh, we're used to you now. You're not one of us. And, you better become one of us. The novelty has worn off and you're not as charismatic as you used to be. But I think that was mainly also because the more you stick around and cycle with the energies, you get the good and the bad. I didn't like the bad, not to disparage anything, but everybody has it. And so you're tuned into that, and that is naturally running through you, and it's naturally running through your bones. You've connected to the geography, and this is the initiation of Baal. However, if you leave it at that, if you just have the energy of Agaris, then you're going to have a hard time, because instinctively you're going to start pounding on your frog. And not to make any innuendos here about other practices. Slap the frog.
Let's just move on, Ari.
Let's move on. Okay. So you were beating Kermit the Frog. I'm not the one who had the dream. He was all green, wasn't he? So anyways, to stop beating your lower self up, lift your lower self.
The shit like that is priceless, man. Don't edit that out.
Okay.
Don't edit it out. Leave it in there.
No, I won't. We're past the point of swearing, folks. There's going to be occasional swears here, but as long as we keep it at the salt and pepper level and don't make it our bread and butter, then to mix my metaphors, then we're fine. So. Okay. Those are just the first two genies. See, you can go into deeper. They reveal so many things. So it's not like we're going to, okay, let's move to the next one now. You need to plumb this a little bit. They are 8 genies, so you can spend less time than you would if you were summoning them separately, but not much. You actually may need time to integrate all of this, especially all 8. Ultimately, when you do this, they have one thing in common. The breath. The focus of any kind of meditation, contemplation, or focus should be the breath energy, should be the chi, just like you do in Tai Chi, just like you do with organ fusion and all of that. We're going to go to deeper levels later on in the next one. In fact, the first 3 of the decans, which involves like 4 crosses, which covers a whole sign. These are the mutable signs, and the mutable signs are essentially changeable ones. There are other signs that are fixed, and there are other signs that are cardinal, which means they kind of lead. So these are characteristics of astrological signs. If anybody knows astrology, they'll be familiar with them. We need not go into that right now. However, the first 3 signs are alchemical. They're internal. And you do the chi first, and then you do the jing, which is essentially your bioenergy, your sexual, biological energy. That's the watery energy that we were talking about. That's also connected to the earth. And there is also the level of fire, which is different than the original consciousness, which is more like an unignited type etheric energy. Etheric presence is your pure consciousness. But fire is how esotericists depict a strong focus of consciousness. Basically, you focus it enough, like a concentrated, like the sun's rays concentrate with a lens, to the point that it ignites something. So it's not just a passive type elemental flame. That's why it needs a lot of focus and work, but not a point of concentration that will cause tension. You always need to be relaxed. So everything these 4 jinn have in common have to do with a calibration of your prana, with your chi. And that's why you're doing this initiation on the one hand, and even if you do it correctly, which means that Agaris, you already have that power. You see, it almost works backwards. You think that, okay, I need to summon Baal first, get him down pat, and then I go to Agaris, and then somehow reverse the energy back to Baal. But really, you usually will tune into the energy first. So you can tune in to Agaris first, like you did, collect the energy, and then spend your time establishing the pattern of Baal. The day jinn is about the pattern. It's about what the jinn is telling you to do, what you need to do, the specific thing that the jinn does that is going to further your progress according to the tarot cards that are expressed here. Like we said, the Magus of the lovers, which is really your intelligence of relationships. That's what this is giving you. In the east direction, in the southeast direct quarter, basically, all the jinn, the jinn of the first decan are giving you the intelligence of your relationships. However, when you expand that way, yeah, you're going to have the nice old ladies smiling at you and the nice old men smiling at you. But there's going to be a lot of disapproval too. There's going to be a lot of contradiction. There's going to be a lot of friction because you can't agree with everybody. And there's evil people in the world too. What if you tap into that a little bit? It is the whole human collective, but all jumbled up. So there's so much suffering in the world that the fear layer is almost like, imagine the ocean and somewhere there's just a layer of sludge in the middle. So any diver that goes down is going to encounter this area of sludge that is toxic or acidic. And if they can go below that, they'll hit the deeper water, which is pure. But that level is basically a fear trigger. It's a threat. And it's so unconscious that your mind is habituated into making stories about it, like I said. So behind that, you have two other jinn, which is where the element that rules them this time is not the metal element, because Agaris and Baal are meant to tune you into the channeling of the fire spirit through the metal element. They allow you to basically open up to the spiritual stuff that you confront in front of you, and that you can juxtapose it with the inner fire within you, the soul fire of the heart that's being activated. None of this is accessible immediately off the bat, unless it's an exceptional situation or a kind of radical mystical experience or something. Usually it comes more gradually, especially with the jinn, because they understand humans more than humans think. And they understand humans enough, at least the jinn intelligence that's free of corruption, understands the pace that you need to go. That's why if you want to avoid like Kundalini syndrome and emotional blowback and all of the terrible stuff that can occur when you're opening up these days without ample protection or esoteric experience, the jinn will help. So the jinn that are in the west direction then, the first two jinn of the third quadrant, is called the northwest quadrant. This is the quadrant that's ruled by Paimon, and the element is water in this. So be careful not to get confused with all these element things back and forth. What matters is that the cups are your means of connecting, symbolically speaking. So Phoenix is the first one, is the day jinn. Phoenix is essentially a certain quality of consciousness that favors artistic and intuitive thought. It's also a Kundalini dynamic of the inner fire that you're waking up with Agaris, with Baal, by placing in the lower part of the body. Then with Phoenix, it rises back up to the top like Kundalini. So essentially, Phoenix allows for a circle, and he goes, okay, this is where you need the energy of protection, of Halfas. Halfas is basically a defense jinn. His representation is like a fortress. So he tunes into your energy body and your aura and goes, okay, we don't have to just shield you from everything, but there's points in the aura connected to certain frequencies or certain consciousness or certain domains of experience that specifically need bolstering. So Halfas is one of the jinn of this quadrant because the writer, the compiler of the system, places jinn of defense through the water element, which is interesting. Basically, your dense earth element, which is also connected to your kidneys and your sexual energies, are kind of the best medium to work with if you're going to protect yourself and if you're going to make changes that require a little bit of forcefulness. Essentially here, Halfas is telling you that, well, the process of Phoenix is well and good, but that's where you're going to get attacked because something is going to ride your energy as it's going up, and it will enter the brainstem, and you'll have to deal with impurities, basically. And Phoenix will not dispel those impurities unless you have the energy of Halfas mixed in. So the energy of Halfas is the energy that Phoenix channels. So Phoenix will tell you, okay, I'm the fiery phoenix. I'm what's reborn. I'm the deathless flame. Well, this deathless flame needs to go back up to the head again. And as it goes back up to the head, it's reborn each time. And that's guaranteed if you have Halfas next to you. because halfas, as you summon them, will, shall we say, bolster the energy. So practically speaking, and this is where the personal so-called teaching comes in, even though you have the first jinn, that's the day jinn, and then the next jinn is the night jinn, you're actually cycling one into the other because they represent what we call the two pillars of the temple. If you look at the Rider-Waite tarot deck, or most of the tarot decks, the second card is called the High Priestess, and she's in the middle, and you have a lot of cards like that, like Justice, the Hierophant, where there's two pillars. The person of the card is standing between two pillars or sitting between two pillars. The pillars represent, some people say it's from the Tree of Life, but it's really the pillars of the temple. And the first pillar is the white one, which is the establishment of something. And the second pillar is the black one, which is the power you need to establishment. So you have the force and the form. The form is connected more to your intention, and the force is connected to the energy channeling capacity. So if you're grounded, though, it's counterintuitive. You're not going to go the celestial path. You're going to go the terrestrial path. And Baal also tells you, dispute the convention from now. Don't dispute the whole system. Don't dispute the next jinn or the jinn behind you or the jinn to the right and left. From now on, find the general thing to dispute, except for Baal's own configuration of the three elements, the cat, the frog, and the human. Dispute the configuration of the day and the night side. So go to the night side first, because it's the underworld. It's the jinn. The jinn are associated with the dark realms and whatever. They're not light realm beings. So it would be easier to start with Agaris, and you have intuitively. You actually revealed this and confirmed this. You're starting with Agaris, and Baal is a consequence. And when you do that, you close a circle. You don't just go linear. You're actually looping. So you know how if you have you're drawing these, you have a doodle. So some people doodle, they just draw a line and then make a loop and then make another loop and then make another loop. So this is like your phone cord used to be, where it's just looped, a looped wire. So it spirals through. You're spiraling through the whole cycle. So you start with the night jinn, you tune into that, and you accumulate that force, and then you apply that force, the capacity, with its intelligence to the day jinn. And those are the two secrets of Baal. Basically, you do that, and you also reverse the vertical elements, the water and the fire element in your axis, in your vertical axis. Always moderating the two with the prana in the center, with your the chi in the center between them. That is the chi guided by the consciousness that has been infused with the aces. So that's why you always start at the beginning. You don't just go to the jinn and say, okay, jinn, here we go. I do that. And because I'm lazy and I'm a klutz and creating the system, it's almost like the administrator having a backdoor pass, some computer administrator. So I can work with them normally, but in order to really fine tune it, you have to have all these other backdoor type areas that you can access. So in any case, once you get that down pat, it's going to be a lot easier to work with them. The fact that you just do the night jinn first. So if you go to the back, the night jinn is, again, halfas. Of course you need to do halfas first because he needs to provide a certain bolstering of defense. And then you can do Phoenix and tune into the first cycle of Kundalini. And it's not really Kundalini. That's like an advanced stage. It's really chi. So you're moving chi up your spine like you do with the Taoist microcosmic orbit, with the, moving the energy up the spine and down the front. Only here, what you're doing is changing the order of the water and the fire, letting the water be heated by the fire and turn into steam, metaphorically speaking, and that steaming energy, because there's going to be an interaction that you're going to sense. It's a real interaction when you actually move one below the other and then bring them together. In Taoism, they bring them together in the lower elixir field first, and then they do it to the middle and then the higher. But in this system, I think we can do it all at once. You can raise the fire all the way to the top and lower the water all the way through, and it will not put out the fire as long as you retain a certain balance of awareness. And that balance is given to you by the jinn. You will intuitively be able to do this with some practice. Basically, whatever, it's a warm cold type thing. You're getting warmer a little bit more this way. You're getting warmer, and you'll be able to feel, okay, we got it. This is how it goes. It'll be a kind of eureka moment, but not a big one. These are not these. This is for somebody who is comfortable with esoteric cultivation, who won't go, oh my God, a life-changing whatever, when it's really, well, get ready for 1,000 more of those, and because it's par for the course. So in a way, it needs to be normalized, just like you go to the gym or like you go to the library or anything else that benefits you in a certain way like that. But here it's a far more deep way. So to close this, the other two jinn, I'll leave it up to you. The north and south axis is essentially your stabilizing. It's the Earth's spine. It's the Earth's axis. So you're not, when you're facing south, you're aligned with the Earth's axis, as if saying, okay, I'm safe and grounded here in a line, so I can tune into my organ energies. They won't be affected by external influences. When I turn toward the east, however, I'm facing the Earth's rotation. So then things are coming to me. And that's when you're going to start getting affected by whatever influences there are at that level of the subconscious. So this first step is training your chi for this specific work. And this specific formula does not exist anywhere else. It doesn't exist in any system aside from this organization. And one thing you haven't done is connect the holy names to each jinn. So I don't know if you do that but tune into those and use it as a mantra when you're summoning the jinn and see how that goes. Each jinn has a different holy name dynamic. So when I sent you, I don't know how many sigils I've sent you. I think did I send you all 8 of them for the first cross? The seals?
You see the names, and the names are around the
and there's 6 letters, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All you do is add, so u, va, hi, v. So it starts with a vowel each time, and the vowel is always a U. It's like Yahweh starts with an I or a Y, Jehovah. But this is a different orientation of the names. It gives you an access to that energy without going into the religious stuff. It's a very mystical formula for the 4-letter word that's applied directly to esoteric processes like the alchemy of the Sefer Yetzirah, for example, where it is supposed to be coded according to certain views. And I ran with it, and it works much better than the normal divine name. It has too much baggage, and it's for a whole different thing. In any case, try using those. Only at the end you have a 7th letter, and that is A. It's H, basically. It's so it's pronounced like a short E or E. So if the first divine name is, what is it, VHV, then when you add the 4 vowels, it goes U, Va, Hi, Ve. So you will only get up to the last V in the circle, just add an E or A-E-H, with a small aspiration like after that. And do that before you tone the jinn, see how it works. Then try it again after you tone the jinn and see how it works and what the jinn say to you in accordance to that. I think they're cool with it. I know they're cool with it because I used the names before. I just didn't use the whole 7-letter thing. I didn't add the vowels, but I believe that this is but something that can be done that enhances the situation, and it has for me. It will guarantee that the jinn is more aligned with the purpose of what we're doing, of the alchemy, and basically eliminate the noise. Because you did it this time, you only opened up to the rulers. You didn't have protectors, you didn't have guardians, you didn't use like the gods, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't have to at this point, like I said. But as you move through the jinn, they're teaching you slowly to calibrate your 3 treasures, as they say in your conscious, your shen, your jinn, and your chi. plus your ethereal consciousness. So you calibrate these, and then what you do is as you move through the next zodiac crosses, you're going to be focusing on the directions themselves. You're going to actually be focusing on your personal direction of, for example, one cross deals with the east. This isn't the forward direction. This is actually the east, and it has its own energy, and it's also the forward direction in this zone. But which is you move around, so your forward direction isn't the same, but the east always is. Then the next one deals with the west or the south or something like that. And each time you're dealing with a relationship of your own energy field to the space around you in those next 6 ones. So the first 3 of the zodiac wheel deal with your internal state. The next 6 deal with your external environment and the archetypes of it. And the thing is that the more you do this, the more it will tune with the rulers themselves. Once you get through the whole jinn wheel and you have done, then you will be able to effectively channel the court cards. So you'll be able to condense the jinn into a whole quadrant. You don't have to who am I going to summon now? You can do that, and sometimes you need specific jinn. They're at your beck and call. One of the things of the system is that you can summon them normally too. And but you probably won't want to because you won't need to. They'll be working subconsciously within you as well because they know what you want. And also they know your soul's needs. That's basically at that level, and that's their purpose, especially if you use the divine names. So these divine names are supposed to be, as I said before in another one, the hand of an angel, of a divine awareness that parts the path between the seen world and the promised land. And in this case, the promised land is not some milk and honey place, but it's really the underworld itself. Or rather, it's the underworld plus the normal world, because what you want is to eliminate the corruption of the normal world, your normal experience, the stuff that is not truly you and is not truly earthy and is not even of this universe, you might say, to be able to smooth it out, to be able to harmonize it and make it healthy. A lot of people have misunderstood words like harmony, words like, peace and balance, and they think they're wusses. There's words for wusses and pussies and who knows what. So they're actually terms that mean health. That's the best. We use that word. Nobody's going to say, I don't want to be healthy. I want to be sick. No, this is your psycho-spiritual health and well-being. So the jinn are part of the planet. They're part of all human awareness. They're part of a whole field of presence. And it's an organic dynamic that can be applied symbiotically with human beings. So I think that's all I have to say about this.
Hang on. You don't get to quit just yet.
Okay.
Just a little bit more to say.
Sure.
With the holy names, you may have to write me an email and explain that out because it's either that or I'm not going to be able to do it because I really. Yeah. You don't have to do anything really long, though. I don't want to overwork you, but I don't know the basics of the vowel and the letters.
Okay, you're right. I think I wrote that in that longer thing I sent you, but I don't know if I placed emphasis on it. So yeah, I'll write something short. Because it's really, look, when you explain it verbally, and the listeners, I'm not explaining this so they will learn it and practice it. Quite the contrary. This is a casual conversation on the process that is not meant to be. Don't do this at home, folks. It's not dangerous or anything, but it's not really the way to learn it unless you're prepared for some, potential ups and downs. This isn't as dangerous like some people say summoning is, but it can can give you nightmares.
And maybe one day we'll go into the stories because I have no problem talking about my Furcus stories. I mean, I'm not giving personal information or anything, but also something else I wanted to ask that may bore the crowd, so we may want to delete this part out. I'm not really sure, but
we'll see.
The organ fusion, what I've done with that was I've just incorporated the healing sounds into the organ fusion. So, and this may be a bad idea, okay? So, but what I've done was, let's say I'm taking the heart and I'm taking the energy of the heart that is bad and needs to be cleaned to the collection point. And when I do that, I'm making, I make the mudra, and then I'm making the heart sound. And then, so I've basically combined the healing sounds with the organ fusion. So when I do the heart and the kidneys, well, I do the heart sound and cleanse that, take that energy to the collection point. And it's the same thing with the kidneys. I make the sound, take that to the collection point, and then I go and bring everything down to the bagwas, and I cleanse everything. And it seems to be okay. It seems to be going pretty well. So
that's how it's written. I didn't make this up, so that's exactly how it's written. That's how I thought I explained it at first, but I guess you intuited.
Oh, no. At first, yeah, I was. Well, it doesn't matter if I'm doing it correct. I don't want to.
You're doing it correctly. Yeah.
Okay, good, excellent. All right, so there we go, man.
Okay, good timing, nice expression. What I want to say to the crowd here is that, like I said, this is a casual conversation for people who are into magic or into occultism or into cultivation. You can be into any of them. It'll give you maybe a new perspective on the field, but it'll also give you a sense of what some people with experience can discuss about these things, how they go about it. This isn't like your classical, what magic ritual did you do? How did you piece these things? This is cultivation of a different type. You can fuse magic, contemplative magic, focus the connection with energies and spirits and alternative consciousness, the connection with the earth. You can fuse the shamanic element, essentially, which is the type of magic that this represents, with a mystical element that represents the divine connection through the divine names and all that. And I'll give you the details about that in the email. Then you can also use the how do you say basically it's a marriage between the magical element and the spiritual element in terms of a new type of cultivation. So you're actually cultivating here. You're not performing a ritual to give you a result in the sense of imprinting something and having it done for you. You're creating a and rituals should actually be done like that. That is the original way. Rituals are supposed to be through a contemplative focus. You enter an altered state first, and you do the ritual to deepen that state and translate your awareness into something you want to happen. So the ritual isn't supposed to create the altered state. It's supposed to express it. And the action that you do that can be symbolic or even contemplative or internalized or externalized or both, that is an expression of the awareness. So in this system, we're combining all of these things. We're learning to do a kind of yoga-like tantric awareness, connected to energy and consciousness, but slowly and gently, moving it step by step. But because we're dealing with the underworld, it may seem incredibly drastic. You're dealing with it in terms of Kundalini yoga. It's almost like being stuck not on the root chakra, but going under the root chakra, where a lot of yogis say, no, there the hells lie there. Don't go there. Don't do that. Block that off. Put some protection on the ground so your butt doesn't connect with the planet. Others say, no, you need to be bare-butted, sitting on the ground and deeply connected. But you also need to do some practice that's called nyasa. And nyasa is basically, I forget the English term, but what it is you tone your fingertips with a mantra so it vibrates, and then so it modulates the same way that you when you do chi work or martial artists where they hit people's acupressure points or acupuncture points and cause either damage or healing. So this basically does a similar thing, only it doesn't do it with force. You tune your fingertip and then you place it like on your shoulders, on your eyes, and certain other parts, so as to create protection for these ambient energies that come in. And they do. I mean, I would be working with certain mantras of Kali, and lately, I stopped them. I moved into other ones that are just as intense, but the ones of Kali open up the whole field. And then I end up feeling the panic attacks, the terror. It's part of the goddess. But the thing is, you need to purify the field first. And you can work with Kali if you can filter things out. And filtering doesn't mean denial. This is all for a healthy process. And the participator of this, like you, will learn as you move through it, through your own experience, just where and how the conventional esoteric thinking is flawed, and where its limitations are, and where people have misunderstood things. So we're going to move on, and I think it's exciting. So if you guys are interested out there, and you've held on so far, which I don't know who, whatever, but because I'm not even gonna disgrace myself by making any judgments on the state of occultists today, or the way esoteric thinking is and the biases involved and this and that. That doesn't matter. Right now, this is just another expression of what we may call a magical system. And it's not quite a modern one. I'm simply tuning into it and, clarifying certain nuances through the connection. That's what the connection is supposed to do, actually. You're supposed to connect on a certain level, and then you're supposed to improve as you go on and fine tune it, because everybody's different, and also the times are different. So we're going to get more into this. We're also going to get into your experiences with Furkas and all of the stories involved, because the people need to know. Yeah, I mean, they're good stories, and they're maybe we can look at them.
They need to know
what they're in for.
What you're in for, man. And it's
look,
it's
a ride. It's a ride.
Yeah, it is a ride.
And you can be the passive or the active component of the ride, but it can be depends, or it could be a nice ride. But I want to address something, and I keep forgetting it, and then remembering it and forgetting it again. But I think it has to do with just the fact that there are the 4 levels, and you have the psychological level, the relationship level, etc. You're at the 2nd level, moving to the 3rd. As you complete and the 3rd is collective level, the collective thinking. So imagine 10 years ago having the experiences you would have now with this thing. It would be overwhelming. Right now, it seems natural and nice because you're prepared for it. Imagine if your relationship with your brother was like what it was 10 years ago, and you're trying to do this. It would be a little too much.
Yeah,
and
no way.
No way. So there is a need, and the 4 levels are going to be explained. As you tell your story, it'll give me an opportunity to explain that. So if you can remind me, I'll try to remind myself of just discussing the 4 levels again in the context of your Furka stories. And that's it. All right, man. Thanks for your time and everything you put into it. And really, I think this was a good one. And I'm not gonna. I might not even edit more than 10 minutes of it. I might not even edit it. I don't think I'll edit it. You're right. Just the beginning, and that's good. Yeah. So it's getting to be more spontaneous. I still got to post the other one, which is late, because that's too much. I spent like a day and a half working on it, and it was like, too much.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'll talk to you next time, man. Have a good one.
All right, man. Adios, amigo. I'll see you next week.
Before you go, just keep collecting the questions.
Okay.
It's like, if you just keep doing it, and I'll send you the other thing ASAP, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Take your time. It's okay.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. Okay, man. Take care.
All right. Adios, amigo.
Adios.